From Mentor English. Today the topic is grammar translation method, and we are going to discuss it particularly from Mentor English. Myself, motivational speaker, leadership business coach, master trainer, language trainer, vlogger, novelist, Professor M. A. Raza. So today we are going to start grammar translation method. This is the traditional approach to teaching of English, and in spite of the fact that strong criticism has been leveled against this approach, it is still very popular with the teachers and is vastly used in our schools. The grammar translation method started around the time of Erasmus, 1466 to 1536. Its primary focus is on memorization of verb paradigms, grammar rules, and vocabulary. I'm repeating this particular line to give you the important notion. Its primary focus is on memorization of verb paradigms, grammar rules, and vocabulary. Application of this knowledge was direct on translation of literary text, focusing of developing students appreciation of the target languages, literature, as well as teaching teaching the language activities utilized in today's classroom include questions that follow a reading passage, translating literary passages from one language to another, memorizing grammar rules, memorizing native language equivalents of target language vocabulary. The focus of this method is on written language. It makes little or no provision for practice in spoken language. The basic principle of this method may be stated as follow. Point number one: translation from the target language English into mother tongue Urdu and vice versa is the best way to understand the linguistic patterns of English. Point number two: that in the process of interpreting English into the mother tongue, the sentence pattern of English is assimilated. Point number three: the linguistic effects of the point number three the linguistic effect of English explain the mother tongue, and the rules of grammar are rigorously taught. It is assumed that the learners will apply the rules thus taught and be able to produce the foreign language expression when confronted by a situation. Point number four: the structure of a foreign language is best learnt when compared and contrast with that of the mother tongue. In brief, we can say that there are three key concepts in this semantic approach. The focus is on the understanding of the written language, that the best way to do so is through translation, and the foreign language facts are taught by the rules of grammar, which ensure the production of a correct target language. This method has its roots in the technique used for classical languages, for example Latin and Greek in Europe during the Middle Ages, and afterwards Latin and ancient Greek were dead languages, and the interest of the people in these languages was for the sake of their classical literature and religious writings. They read the great classical authors like Cicero and try to imitate their styles. The Latin grammars believe in preserving the chaste language of the celebrated ancient authors and prescribed the standard of correction. Thomas and White, or Earl of Surrey, the teaching of English in India. Thomson and White, sorry, not Earl of Surrey. I'll want to repeat the reference again. Thomson and White, the teaching of English in India or in subcontinent. Famous books on Latin grammar written by Varro, Aclius, Donatus, and Persian were outstanding examples of this approach. Donatus grammar was used right into the Middle Ages. By the Middle Ages, it was realized that Latin was no longer the native language for the majority of its prospective user. Instead of describing the living facts of the language, the grammar books degenerated into a set of dry rules. The concept of correctness became more rigid and dominant. Grammar was defined as the art of speaking and writing well. Grammar and classical literature has become complementary subject and were pursued in their own right for the cultivation of intellectual discipline, social manner, and cultural accomplishments. A similar attitude developed towards teaching and learning ancient Greek, the language of the best literature was held up as a model and a guide for the desired standard of speech and writings. The effect of such an attitude towards language teaching on later thought was considerable. The 16th century was the peak period of prestige for Latin and Greek studies. This caused a setback to the study and growth of native languages. They were called vernacular local languages and considered to the base and inferior to Latin and Greek. Spanish and French were seen as example of much decayed languages. The popular adjectives for English in the 16th century were such as basis, barbarous, rude, grass, vile, and incolloquent. Incolloquent. However, with the passage of time, this wave of interest in classical languages uh, ebbed or ebbed down, and interest in the mother tongues developed. Grammars were written for the new languages, but the model of Latin and Greek grammars were followed. The best authors were studied as example of what a language was like, although the shift was from Latin and Greek to the study of native languages, but the old tradition in the method of study lingered on. When the English grammar were written in the 18th century, the scholars steeped in Latinite and Greek literary traditions produced only rules of correct usage. Hence, the grammar books which followed the old models are referred to as prospective grammars by modern scholars of linguistics, because these grammars prescribed normative rules instead of giving a description of the living facts of a language. Similar standards were imposed on other languages like Spanish, French, and German, but at least the popular realized their mistakes, and the fallacy of these grammar was exposed. Traditional grammar failed to fulfill their purpose because the rules prescribed by them became more and more removed from the current usage of a majority of speakers. Towards the beginning of the present century, the old approach was severely attacked and finally made humble before the findings of a new discipline called linguistic, which appealed to the reason and were convincing. In the light of these findings, new principles for learning languages were laid down, and a fresh approach emerged as a result. It was first called reformed method, but later on it was popular known as direct method, which we shall study in the next section or in the next lecture, inshallah. We have we have seen above that the basic tenets of the grammar translation methods are teaching rules of grammar to describe the target language with the aim that the learner would produce right patterns of language if once he mastered the rules of grammars. Point 2, use of translation for semantic purpose. For example, foreign language is best understood when translated into the mother tongue of the learner. Point number 3, it is by the process of translating that the sentence patterns and other facts of a foreign language are easily assimilated by the learner. The question of translation from one language to another is a complicated one. It is a specialized skill in its own right and deserves a special study, which is not possible here. However, a brief treatment may be desirable here in the context of grammar translation method and as a tool for learning foreign languages. The advocates of the grammar translation method believes in the efficiency of translation as a technique of foreign language teaching on the following grounds. A German scholar wrote, it is not till one can translate the word that one has complete mastery over it, so that one not only understands it but can use it. Henry Sweet, a staunch advocate of the natural method, takes a lenient view of mother tongue if used sparingly. He remarks, and if the judicious use of mother tongue would help in the process to establish in distinguish sorry to establish in instant instantness association between thought and sound in the initial giving meaning of the words of arrangement of words and foreign expressions, then there is no harm in it. Thompson and White Thompson and White, writing on the vernacular in the teaching of English, say there is first the finding of vernacular equivalents for single words. This goes on throughout the course because very often the best help we can give the pupil is to give him in his own language the equivalent. uh, Reference 1, Thompson and White, Teaching of English in India, page 23. Henry Sweet, The Practical Study of Languages, Oxford University Press, London, 1972. Of a foreign word, there is next the translation of special sentences over object. Here may be either the explain grammatical structure or to convey the meanings of idiomatic expressions. In both case, translation is resorted to not for only its own sake, let me repeat, its own sake, but as a means to an end. The end being the more effective teaching and learning of the foreign languages. Probably such theoretical framework provides the basis on which the practitioners of a grammar translation method include translation of the foreign language into the mother tongue and out of the mother tongue into the foreign language. But one may argue against them and say that mere comprehension of the foreign text is not guarantee for learning other skills of that language and using it correctly and fluently. By translating foreign languages individual sentence or a compact paragraph, passive understanding many may occur may occur, but it can never ensure a smooth and uninhibited fluency in speech. As a matter of fact, translation proves a hindrance in acquiring spontaneity and smooth natural acquired foreign language via the translation and by parroting sorry yes, parroting the rule of grammar, which confronted by a foreign language situation is not thinking in that language. So he cannot speak fluently, and with the natural case, his style in both speech and writing is laborious and laborious, both you can say, and the result is a variety of language which may be approximation of English, but not the language spoken and written like the native speakers. So today we discuss grammar translation method in a detail. Now I'm coming to your questions. So before raising your hands for the questions, I want to conclude the final statement for the for my channel Mentor English. So just give me some time. Dear watcher, dear subscriber, this is Mentor English channel for the services of English as a literature and as a language. And we have another channel by the name of Murshid Urdu Professor Amir Raza for the services of national language Urdu and Urdu. And we have a channel with the name of Jamia Darul Shaykhul Islam for the study of classical Islamic sciences like logic, philosophy, fiqh, and usul al fiqh. So let me go now and say with me: do something more for humanity, do something more for knowledge and practices. Have a good day. Now I'm going to open your mics and for the questions.